Forget all you know about podcasts. We welcome you to an experience uniquely different. Please join us for our coverage of all entertainment on the fringe of society. The candles are lit, the lights are down low. It is now time to welcome our host as he steps up to the pulpit. The sacrifice has been prepared for the midnight Black Mass.
Ghastly greetings, groovy ghoulies on the Beyond Ringside Radio Network and ProWrestlingRadio.net. Welcome to another live edition of the Midnight Black Mass. That's right, if you thought it couldn't get any rawer, you were wrong, because I can't even go back and edit out the things I might have thought were too controversial for the broadcast, because we're rolling hot and we are on the air. I am your host, the Rev Dan Wilson, the maniacal minister of the occult, the devil you know, alongside my tag team partner, the Southeastern Strangler, Andrew Alexander. What's been going on, brother man?
We're recording live right here tonight, and I think you got the fucking job. Man, if somebody gets that reference, I mean, there's people out there that'll get it, but not a whole lot. What's going on, man?
Man, I just returned from a beautiful, long vacation in sunny Florida. I was there for a whole week. I did not have access. I had access, but I was having too much fun to bother checking social media, so my mind is clear and sharp. I have not had to deal with anything regarding the election. I've not had to deal with anything regarding idiots fucking arguing with each other back and forth over stupid shit. I've not had to deal with wrestling. It's been quite a wonderful experience, and I feel completely recharged. So I'm glad to be here, and we've got a fun program tonight. Another off-the-cuff edition. We're just going to be saying whatever pops into our head. My schedule has been quite hectic over the last few weeks prior to the vacation, so we haven't really had a lot of time to get material in the can, but can't leave you great folks hanging, so we had to come with a live broadcast. It actually is quite convenient for us to do this from time to time, and it also provides a unique version of the show for you to take in and indulge yourself with. And so, like you said, it's unfiltered. There's no reins on us. Like Pinocchio, there ain't no strings to hold us down. So first of all, say it again?
No, go ahead. First of all, tell us all about your wonderful vacation while in sunny Florida while I was stuck here in fucking shithole Georgia.
I will. And well, first of all, I'm going to bitch about the temperature, because I go down there and it's 90 degrees every day. And it's beautiful. And I'm out there cooking in the sun. And I actually this time did not. I normally have two shades of skin color. I have translucent and lobster. But I actually got a nice tan. I lost a lot of weight on that trip because I'm walking about 10 miles every day, so I'm looking svelte. So that shit was awesome. But seriously, it was a great fucking experience. Took the family to Disney World, and we did the whole deal this time. Last year, we just did the 2 days in the Magic Kingdom. This year, we did the whole 5-day experience. We went to every Disney park. I got to nerd out for myself a little bit on the whole Star Wars section of the Hollywood studios, and watch my kid go through Jedi training and become anointed an official Jedi Padawan. She's even got a badge to prove it, and she did a lightsaber duel with Darth Vader, Kylo Ren, and the Seventh Sister. So that'll bring a tear to a glass eye right there, Pally.
Motherfucker, your kid didn't do that. You did that shit.
I wish they wouldn't let me on. I was too old. I had my fucking my lightsaber and my Padawan robe, and I was ready, and they were like, "No, man, it's just for the kids." I was like, "What the fuck?"
Yoda was like, "Too old he is."
Too old to begin the training.
Well, that does sound awesome.
So yeah. Well, and one thing I'd just say, like, if you got kids, do that shit while they're young. Like make sure you make that trip if you can. It's not as expensive as one would think. It's expensive, but it's not as expensive as you'd think, especially if you get the big package. Memories that will last a lifetime. I can promise you, when you're on your fucking deathbed, you will be happy that you did shit like that over argued with assholes on the internet. Nobody's going to say, man, I wish I would have bitched more about the 2016 election. No, they're not. You're gonna be happy that you did things with your family and made important memories. So you should really fucking try to do that if you have kids, because it's a magical thing. They really roll out the red carpet for you. And as well they should for the fucking money you pay, but that's beside the point. It's totally worth it. Glad to be back. But speaking of the great mouse overlord, who we bow to now in all forms of entertainment, got to finally check out Marvel's Civil War. And I was very happy with the results. What about you, Andrew?
Oh, man, that shit made my penis so hard. I literally, this was a first for me. I've definitely seen some of the Marvel movies multiple times in theaters, but I saw Civil War at one theater and left and instantly drove to another theater and watched it again.
I mean, it was that good. Like, I a lot of people hated Batman versus Superman. I loved it. It had its problems, but it delivered where it counted. But Civil War was a masterpiece on a whole different level. Even really, in my opinion, anything Marvel has done thus far. It was a lot of people, were expecting there was going to be Avengers 2.5 for the most part, and it was at points, but it was more so a sequel to Winter Soldier, and they played off all of the great points off of that, making it a sequel. And it had the heart, it had the action, it had the jokes, it had the serious moments, it had everything you could possibly want. If I had to have one small nitpick, and it's really all the Russo brothers movies, and I love those guys, and I love the way they direct, and I love their stories that they tell, but I'm not a big fan of the shaky camera action sequences that they love to start their movies off with. Usually in the middle it calms down, and like in the big fight in the middle, everything was a little more seeable, I guess is a better word, but in that fucking opening scene, I couldn't tell what the fuck was going on because the camera was so goddamn shaky.
I mean, now that you mention that, I guess I could see that, but I didn't really. It's not something I walked away with having a problem with. I mean, I don't think Batman versus Superman was near as bad as a lot of people have said it was. It was pretty good. The more I think about it and ponder on some things, there was some issues with it, but it was a fun movie. But this Civil War was just Marvel telling DC, suck our fucking cocks, because it was leaps and bounds, like, better than anything they've ever even thought about doing, because it was just, oh man, it was so insane. It was a fucking roller coaster of emotions. I mean, I just mentioned how I did see it twice in one day, but I should throw in that I've already seen it a third time. I saw it like 3 days later. I saw it a third time, and fought the urge to see it today, but I was like, no, that's a bit excessive, and we have X-Men Apocalypse opening in just under 2 weeks, so I'll save and go see that. But Civil War was great. If I had a nitpick, I would say I thought the post-credit scenes, I didn't think they were quite as epic as both the movie and what people may have been expecting. I mean, at least what I was expecting. Not that there was anything wrong with them. They just weren't. They weren't a huge thing to get you pumped for the future of the movies, I thought, especially considering, the Black Panther one. That's really far down the road. But they were fine. There was nothing wrong with them. I just thought it would be something to build up to maybe Doctor Strange or even the Avengers as a whole. But the movie, man, it was top notch. One of the best Marvel movies. It's so hard at this point to even pick a best one. There's probably 2 or 3 that I consider to be a good answer for the best Marvel Cinematic Universe film. But this has got to be up there. I mean, do you think it was one of the better ones they've done?
I think it's probably the best one they've done. I think the Captain America trilogy has been the best series of films they've done in the movies, just as overall movies. And not like some of the movies are great as far as a piece in their larger puzzle, but not all of them just stand alone as great individual movies. But I think all of the Captain America movies do, and particularly Winter Soldier, which previously was my number one pick from the franchise so far, and now Civil War, which I think just added to that legacy and was even better. So, yeah, I think Civil War is right now, I mean, even though it's fresh in people's minds, you know, and when something's fresh, it's always new and the exciting, shiny new toy, as we say. So a few months later down the line, I think we need to revisit this and see how, if we still feel this way. But as of right now, I'm saying Civil War is the best outing they've had yet.
Yeah, Winter Soldier was arguably my favorite as well. So this could have, took over that spot easily. It was amazing how well they did with juggling so many characters. I mean, it's to the point now where I'm really, how can they top Civil War? And also, it's making it tough on movies like a Doctor Strange and some of these upcoming films like Black Panther and some of these that are just kind of centered on one character. You may get a couple. Thor is the next Thor solo movie is supposed to have Hulk as well. You pretty much have to do that now because the days of watching a movie about one superhero were kind of spoiled on that because this one had 12, a dozen superheroes in this movie, and they did such a great job with everyone had some moments to shine. Like an Ant-Man who had one of the small, kind of the smaller role in, but may have stole the whole fucking movie, overall with his appearance. Same thing with Spider-Man.
The biggest mark-out moment in the entire movie was Ant-Man for me. And you know what I'm talking about without going too heavy into spoiler territory. I was like, holy fuck! Like I stood up in the theater and did a giant fist pump. Like Arsenio Hall style, like fucking.
And it kind of sucked because I knew that was going to happen because, and a lot of people probably did, because some of the action figure lines, both the Lego set based off that scene and then the Captain America 6-inch action figures come with Build-A-Figure piece to build, spoiler alert, character that we're talking about. So that was kind of a given away thing that I'm kind of shocked that they did, but that's kind of a necessary evil. You have to get that merchandise out to capitalize, to be sure it's on the shelves when the movie's out. So I didn't expect that to happen, but it was so well done, and it wasn't, I don't think it was stupid or so far over the top where it just kind of made you roll your eyes. And the way they ended that scene with Spider-Man and everything, it was just so good. So good. I think it definitely had some of the funny comedic stuff, some really good ones, especially with Spidey. But it didn't have as much as, the Avengers, definitely Guardians of the Galaxy, some of the other movies. It definitely had that more serious tone like the previous Captain America movies, especially Winter Soldier. But the funny things, the entertaining lines, I loved the part when Captain America is getting him a little pre-war smooch, and his buddies in the car, and they give him that little smile and nod. I mean, that's probably the funniest thing in the movie for me.
That was good. Like the fucking 80s CG Robert Downey Jr. really freaked me out. That was really fucking what? Like, so let's consult. And go ahead.
No, at first I was like, oh, that kid sounds like Robert Downey Jr. And he kind of walks towards the camera. I'm like, oh shit, what the fuck? It is Robert Downey Jr. They're getting crazy with that technology, man.
I know, like they did it with Michael Douglas and Ant-Man too, to show, like the '80s Hank Pym or whatever. But now, with Robert Downey Jr. and Ant-Man, like if that technology exists, you can pretty much do anything now. You could just seeing that in action makes me so curious as to what more they could do as far as like de-aging actors and things for movie roles. Like, I don't know, that's fucking crazy.
Pretty soon that's going to be sold in stores. You can have it in your house and de-age yourself, and I'm going to be buying that shit. Get rid of some of these wrinkles.
You and me both, brother. You and me both. Let's consult an exterior opinion. Our producer on the line, Fast Eddie Lane, the founding father of Beyond Ringside, the big man in charge here. Are you a fan of the Marvel movies? Have you been keeping up with all of this hype and hubbub?
I have been for every one of them, and I have got most of them right here on the hard drive, as well as on my DVD shelf.
Awesome. So have you seen Civil War yet?
Yes, I have. I have seen it twice, and I actually liked it more the second time than I did the first time because I was able to go back and pick little things out.
Awesome.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I was kind of the same way as far as I knew what was coming and when it was coming, and just keeping it a closer eye and piecing things together. And you can definitely learn a lot more watching it that second time. Did y'all see kind of the, I guess the finale, the final action sequence? Did you guys see that coming? Because I did. Like in the first 2 minutes of the movie, I knew exactly what was up there. Not that it was poorly done. It was done great. I mean, they did a great job. I just instantly knew, oh shit, that's going to be some emotional, heavy-hitting stuff right there, and it was with the whole the car accident scene with the Winter Soldier. Did you guys see that coming?
I did not. No.
Anticipate a little bit. Saw it coming. No.
Yeah, just because I'm remembered back to there was we don't want to spoil it for people who maybe haven't seen it, but there was a scene in Winter Soldier where it said what happened to that person, and it was in a car accident, and I just remembered it. It's the second I saw the car, I was like, oh shit, there's your real issue in this movie, when it all boils down. Of course, the Accords were the big factor in what started everything, but that was the thing that pushed the battle over the line that you can almost never come back from. And I knew that was happening, and I was like, oh man, it was so well done, man. It was the closest, maybe the closest like tearjerker movie from the Marvel Cinematic Universe too.
Yeah, it definitely had those raw emotional moments. And had I watched Winter Soldier in closer proximity to the movie, I probably would have picked up on it a little more. I started to put it together right before it happened in the movie. I kind of was just trying to not overanalyze things, as I'm apt to do in the first viewing of a movie. I'd like to see it, and the second time through, I'll usually go through and really pick it apart with a fine-tooth comb. So, but yeah, I that last fight was just so intense. And like you said, Spider-Man, I mean, it's the first time Spider-Man has been done 100% true to form.
Thank you.
In my opinion. There's been some good performances. Like, no doubt, Tobey Maguire was a great Peter Parker. He was an okay Spider-Man. He was serviceable. And I thought that Andrew Garfield was a great Spider-Man and was kind of a lame Peter Parker. But this kid has got it all together and is every bit the Spider-Man that you grew up loving in the comic book.
Underoos.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun watching how that movie's put together, and already Robert Downey Jr. signed on to be in that. Maybe a small role, but at least it's going to be tied into to this movie and these films. And going back to what you said earlier about judging them as standalone movies, like I almost really can't do that. That's one reason it's so hard to pick favorites and stuff, because I really don't see these as one movie or even a Captain America trilogy. Man, they're so well tied in together. I'm pretty sure Civil War was the 13th film, and they obviously have many more planned, probably all the way to like 20.
That's impressive to tell a story that spans over that many movies that is still like really good. I mean, obviously we've seen franchises that have multiple sequels, and you can just pinpoint how some of the sequels are just atrocious. And I know this isn't exactly technically the same, but it's very similar. You're telling one consecutive story spanned out over all these parts, and all of these parts, they're just firing on all cylinders. I mean, really delivering. And I really think, and I don't think it's just for hardcore fans like us, like comic fans. I think you can just really know nothing about these characters other than the films, and you can really enjoy these movies.
Absolutely, yeah. They're given to the layperson. You don't have to be a giant comic nerd. Hell, I know a lot of people who now consider themselves comic nerds because they're fans of these movies and they've never picked up a comic book in their life. So it's turning people into fans of the genre. They're just great films, and they're not wrestling related, but we cover a lot of different pop culture here on the Midnight Black Mass, and certainly in the comic book related films.
Fuck wrestling. Civil War.
Okay.
Real quick. I think we need to touch on. I thought they did a great job with Black Panther introducing him. I mean, he had some show stealing moments for sure.
What a character! I mean, he's a guy who's they didn't do it right. It probably wasn't going to get over, but he got over huge. They really let him show out, and he did just what Black Panther should do. He was kind of that neutral party, and he was just vicious the entire time and sort of all of his various skill sets and abilities. And, I'm very excited for his solo film after that.
Yeah, when his first scene in the movie, so well done, where they made you think it was Falcon, because the way it was shot. There's some shots in that movie that are just amazing, and that one was one of them where you assume it's Falcon, and then boom, it's his first appearance on screen in his outfit, in his costume, and the big fight scene with Winter Soldier, and just so well done. Character was top notch. His solo film will be very interesting to watch, and it looks like, judging by the post-credit scene, that we'll have a little mixture of at least some characters in his movie as well. So definitely excited to see what comes up. The next one is Doctor Strange, and I'm a little nervous about that one just because I'm sure I will enjoy it, but I don't know if the masses will enjoy it like they have, the Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy and this movie.
I think, you put it on par with an Ant-Man type movie. It's an unknown property to the majority of people. They don't know Doctor Strange. But, if they deliver an entertaining flick, then people will like him, I think. Yeah, I think that's seemingly what happened with Ant-Man. It didn't do incredible numbers at the box office, but for an unknown property, it did pretty well. They were happy with the numbers. And, I hope Doctor Strange does something in the same ballpark.
Yeah, and I think, especially if they keep it kind of going with this story as far as the Infinity, leading to the Infinity War and things such as that, I think it'll do well. I just hope it exceeds expectations like all of the movies have to keep it going, because the bubble has got to pop at some point, but I just really, really, really don't want it to.
I know. Well, hopefully the Star Wars just takes the bubble over for a little while, and then Marvel gets it back. That way it doesn't pop. I think Star Wars may be the key to extending the shelf life of that stuff, because that Rogue One, oh boy, that trailer looks fantastic.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you. I've already got my opinion locked in, but Civil War, movie of the year, or do you think Star Wars can? Because I love this series. I love it. I love it more than Star Wars. But I can't say Avengers Age of Ultron was better than the Star Wars movie released last year, Force Awakens.
Oh, it wasn't even close.
But do you think Rogue One will top Civil War?
I don't know. It's such an unknown. I think there's so many, from the trailer, it looks like it's going to deliver the goods, but we don't know really anything about the characters or much about the plot other than just, the general We're going to find out about the people who got the Death Star plans, and, the little bit that we've seen in the trailers. But if it delivers the goods, it could. But right now, certainly Civil War is sitting high in that spot, in my opinion. But anyway, we'll move the show along to some wrestling discussion. Well, actually, real quick before we do that, last thing comic related, I did see, just wanted to make a quick mention, a quick rest in peace to a comic great, a guy who I got the chance to see, not really talk to or anything, but, just walk across and see him working on things at various cons. I never bothered him because he was always working on commissions. But a great artist and writer, Darwyn Cooke, passed away. Most famous known for the DC Justice League New Frontier series. In my opinion, maybe the best Justice League story ever. It's definitely up there. And they did an animated movie a few years ago about it as well. That was just basically like a short version of the comic. And he had this very unique art style where he drew the characters in like almost this retro, like 50s looking style. And the book was about basically U.S. history as told through the eyes of the Justice League. And so, like, all these important historical moments up into John F. Kennedy giving the New Frontier speech were all tied into things related to the various Justice League members and how they helped society and shape the world. And it was just a fantastic fucking read. And he did many other great things, but that's just, like, if you can do one comic that stands in the history of time as an all-time great, then you are a legend. And he did many, but that one in particular stands out as just, like, one of my all-time favorite books. So I had to give a quick shout-out to rest in peace and condolences to the friends and family of Mr. Darwyn Cooke.
Nice.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. I always like, I've never read that particular one, but I really like when comics, not to say it should always be done, but I really like when they tie stories into reality, as far as, like you said, with historical significance, events like that. With stuff that's really happening at that time, and I always find that interesting. X-Men have done that a lot, and so a lot of stories have done that, so that definitely sounds like something worth checking out to me.
Well, like for example, there's a great scene that takes place in the Vietnam era in the Hanoi, where Superman comes upon this island, and he finds all these slaughtered Vietnamese soldiers, and I mean, they're fucking butchered. They're laid out, just flesh wounds open, just fucking pouring blood. And then like 50, 60 of them dead. And he comes up and he's trying to figure out what happened. And he finds this little hut. And in it are a bunch of scared Vietnamese women, like all huddled up and crying. And Wonder Woman is in the center of them. And Superman's like, "What the fuck, Diana?" And she was like, "You don't want to know what these men did to these women. Like, I couldn't stop them from getting their retribution." And, just like, it's like a little thing there. But, man, one of those gut-wrenching scenes that just stays with you in comics. And that's the type of thing that guy brought to the table.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Sounds like they got some fucking revenge.
Yeah, for sure. So, but anyway, moving along with that.
Do me a favor.
Sending well wish. Oh, go ahead.
Rev, do me a favor. I want to jump in for a second because I have the DVD for New Frontier. I also have Doom, Flashpoint Paradox, and about 2 or 3 other Justice League features. And I've just got to throw this one out to both of y'all. And I almost feel like we should be doing a combo Midnight Black Mass and Get Your Pulls. But let's go ahead and put this in play. How many times can they recreate the origin of the Justice League? And part 2 of that question, did New Frontier to you not get the feel that it should have been marketed more as a Justice League / Justice Society?
I mean, knowing the history of the comic, that New Frontier was always kind of an Elseworld story. It wasn't one that tied into their actual continuity. So
Right.
I kind of separate it from the others, but I would agree that, they've overdone the origin a lot of times. But the animated series, I know with the animated movies, they go through a lot of different creative teams. So they'll have like a group of guys on those for a few years, and they'll start building a universe. And then because it's fucking Warner Brothers and they can't ever stick with anything, they decide that they don't like it, and they're going to hire a new creative team, and they're going to start it all over. So that's kind of what they did. You almost had this series of animated movies that ran in a congruent continuity, aside from New Frontier, which is always its own thing.
Right.
And then you had Once the New 52 happened, they decided, well, they've rebooted the continuity in the comics, so now we have to do it in these animated movies. So starting with Justice League War,
Right.
they started using the New 52 continuity, which there again, you got another origin. And, not really necessary, I don't think. But, I mean, I love what they've done with most of those animated movies. I know they have the first R-rated version of an animated movie coming out soon with their adaptation of The Killing Joke,
Right.
which is going to bring Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill back to the voice acting roles that everyone loved. So I'm very excited for that, and I'm just a huge fan of all of that.
I'm really happy about the fact that Hamill actually signed back on. He's been raving about the content on Twitter, and he's normally been a little bit back off. It's just like he wanted for a while to get away from it, but once everything was put to him, and it's like, I don't know if it had anything to do with money, but hey, back a Brinks truck up to his door for this role. Because everything I've read about it and everything I've heard about it through different sources, this is going to be absolutely intense.
And a lot of people don't like that story. A lot of people are fucking, very unhappy that this movie is being made.
Yeah.
They think that it's not politically correct and it should have been left in the 80s or whatever. But I disagree. I think it's one of the greatest fucking comic stories ever. It's horrifying in many ways, and the Joker gets that heat as a real heel should. In any movie, the heels are still getting heat. And I don't know what kind of fucking retarded world of wrestling we live in now where they don't think faces and heels exist. But trust me, you get that heat, you're going to want to see the babyface get the ass kicking in. And that's what happens in The Killing Joke. So, just my opinion.
Okay.
They dish out the heat in the locker room, but they won't put it on camera.
Oh, no
That's right.
kidding.
Well, speaking of the wacky world of wrestling, what are we going to discuss wrestling-wise?
Well, while we're getting well wishes out of the way, let's first of all give a big get well soon to Mr. Wrestling number 2, Johnny Walker, who just had an aneurysm earlier today and has been in the hospital, but apparently had a successful surgery and will be making a recovery. One of the all-time greats and a guy I've gotten fortunate to spend a lot of time around in my time in the business. Just a total character. The guy's a jokester. Have you ever seen him without his mask on and just messing around in the back? He's a trip. I've gotten to do things where he would never take his mask off in the back, and then I got to do a couple of like Legends things, like con type deals, where he was there and just without the mask. But just such a cool guy, such a true legend of the business, and so many of those guys like that are not around anymore. So I'm glad to see he's still alive and kicking and made it through at least this most recent attempt to take him down.
The times he's in the back without it, when he won't take off his mask, it's probably not even him. He probably sends some young boy. He probably says nobody there will even know who I am in the back because it's probably all like 20-year-old kids. So just go and tell them you're Mr. Wrestling number 2. And then somebody like you comes in and they're like, oh, fuck, he's on to it.
Oh, yeah. So get well soon to Wrestling too. I hope he makes a full recovery and is with us for for many more years, because the wrestling industry needs guys like that. It needs that knowledge. Not that any of you fuckers would listen to him, but you need him around anyway, because maybe, just maybe, something will fucking bleed into your stupid brains by proxy.
What are you saying? Dude, half these dippity dudes can't even get the gumption and the nerve to go to a training camp by somebody who's qualified.
Oh, don't get me started.
I'll shut
I
up.
don't like to shit on the current world of indie wrestling, because there's a lot of guys out there working hard and doing things
True.
right. 2016 really is a good year for wrestling. I mean, overall, it really is. If you look back, since the bubble popped in about 2000, 2001, and, wrestling, the business just fell on its ass money-wise, 2016 is probably the best year we've seen since then. But still, I have this big issue with... I'm going to say it. if the wheel ain't a fucking wheel anymore, then it's useless. It ain't gonna fucking move a car. There's too much trying to reinvent the wheel in modern wrestling. I really wish, I don't like to be this old stodgy curmudgeon that's like, well, back in my day, kid, because back in my day it was like AJ and Jason Cross, and they were doing as many or more fucking high spots than anybody. So it's not like that. It's just, I feel like the most basic fundamental concept of psychology is lost on 90% of the guys. Am I the only one that feels that way?
Keep going.
No, but back in my day, it sucked too. That's why you have to make an effort to go further back than your day and do a little research and try to pick up some tips and tricks and learn some new things. But yeah, I don't even have the energy to go into a discussion like that. You two bitch about it, and I'll listen.
Don't get me started.
Well, go ahead, Eddie. Please,
Oh, no, for me, it's very simple. You've got kids getting into the business nowadays who, after one training session, I'm going to be the Antichrist of wrestling and win them all over. Horse nuts. You got to train first, dipshit.
There's a lot of carts being put before horses.
I'm going to be a legend. I'm going to be Hulk Hogan version 3.0. Oh, you're going to be 6'4" with a receding hairline, 35 pounds overweight, and sleep with everybody else's wife. But what are you going to do in the ring? More than 5 moves?
That's where I'm headed.
Hey, there you go. I'd like to have that. I'd like to have the cash version of the settlement from Gawker.
Yeah, you'd be both. So yeah, to the guys listening out there, if you give a fuck about what I'm saying, seek out not just videotape, but veterans who have been around. Because there's so many special snowflakes, man. They can't take any fucking criticism. They can't take any fucking criticism is there to help you get better. If it's from some fan, all respect to the fans because they pay our salaries, but they're not the ones who are innately trained on how to do our jobs either.
Right.
So you listen to them, you take what they say into consideration, but also you don't live and die by them, because the art of what we do is learning how to manipulate your audience and letting them bite when you cast the bait, not letting them ask for food and you give it to them. You know what I mean?
Yep. Just goes to the old phrase. There's a difference between getting people to pop for the work and so-called wrestlers or wannabe workers who work for the pop.
Yeah, I just everything seems to be so niche related in wrestling now in 2016. It's there's WWE who does their thing, and then NXT is the most true to traditional wrestling show there is. That's kind of the format they use. And you see it works. It's the most popular thing going into business right now. Why? Because it's fucking wrestling. There's baby faces and heels. They have promo time to set up their spots. Everything's treated seriously. When they get in the ring, it's about the match. They have wild and wacky characters that people can get into, which is very important. I totally miss that about wrestling. There's also this purveying mentality that if you're not out here as a 150-pound guy in short tights having 5-star matches, then you suck and you don't have a place in the business. And that's fucking bullshit. First of all, because nobody's going to pay a dime to see those fucking guys. They're definitely going to love the performance when they're already in the building, but you got to have the fucking giants and the fat guys and the African savages and the fucking one-man gangs and the fucking tanks and the icebergs and all of these crazy cast of characters to make those guys stand out.
Why's he got to be the one-man gang? Why can't he be a king?
He can be a king.
You got a problem with the brother man from Africa?
I do not. I actually love some Akeem. That's one of my favorite gimmicks. But regardless, we need more Abdullah the Butchers and less fucking Dynamite Kids.
Yeah, it's definitely it's switched. I wish there could just be a happy medium. A lot of younger athletic types that are out there having the 5-star matches, working really hard, and then some more muscular dudes, and then some just big fat killers and monsters, and maybe throw in a savage every now and then. I wish there was a fine medium. It seems like back in the day maybe there was too much of one, and now there's too much of the other.
Well, the purveying mentality is that, well, everybody knows wrestling's a work, so now you have to impress them with the performance because they know it's fake. And to me, my opinion on that is the opposite. It's like, okay, well, no other fictional medium winks at the camera every 5 fucking seconds and says, oh, by the way, this is fake. Look what a great performance it is. Nobody's watching Civil War to talk about the great choreographing of the fight sequence between Iron Man and Captain America, It's about the emotional fucking charge behind it. And the fact that they really, there was an issue that came up that they really are pissed off at each other and they really want to destroy each other. And that's what has people hooked. It's not the fucking moves. It's never about the fucking moves. And until you get that, you ain't never going to draw a red fucking cent.
Yeah, the action and fight sequences and things in Civil War were amazing, but did we say one word about them in that whole rant? And I mean, that wasn't planned. It's just not something we brought up, even though they were 5 stars. 5 out of 5 stars. But we didn't even mention them because they are not the most important part. And it's not the most important part of wrestling, and it never will be. But, oh well.
Yeah, so, everything's got its niche. Like, I'm not trying to shit on the PWGs and the Ring of Honors and the things of the world. Like, they all have their audiences and people are paying to see them. But to me, I do miss the fact that, okay, for example, Scott Hensley, who's a guy behind the Phoenix City Invitational, a friend of ours, as a ring announcer, does a lot of other things in the business, a fan, many other things. But he wrote this article about his favorite people in the wrestling business this week. And me and you, Andrew, both made the list. And I, thanked him for his kind words and all of that. And he's talking about how I was a bottomless pit of wrestling knowledge. And I thought, well, that's a cool quote. And that's all nice. But what makes me laugh is that if my bottomless pit of wrestling knowledge doesn't fucking apply to anything you're doing, then what good am I? Why the fuck am I here? Because the shit that my knowledge covers is not what is going on in wrestling now.
Yeah, I mean, I got to say 2 things about that list that he put together. Number one, I was ranked 1 notch higher than Bill Barron, so that's funny to me. And number 2, Scott Hensley is a man who tunes in to the Midnight Black Mass, and every time he wants to hear stories about me fucking out of wedlock because he's a sick man and he likes that sort of stuff. But yes, I agree with what you were saying about the uses of knowledge.
So yeah, so there's that.
Here's something I didn't bother you because I knew you were on vacation and stuff, but I finally made it a point. I knocked them out pretty quick, but I've watched all of the Mid-South content on the network, on the WWE network that you can get for $9.99. I also watched every episode of World Championship Wrestling on the network. I have watched all of the Global, which is basically just a bunch of USWA stuff. Let's see. I watched all the AWA stuff, which there's not a whole lot on there. But I watched all of that content over the past couple of weeks. And I'm not saying every bit of it should be applied today. I mean, you can't have pretty much you can't have Raw be 3 hours of squash matches. But you could have some. And it would be an extremely effective way to get people over. Like you said, that's basically what NXT does. They're not total squashes, like the bell doesn't ring and Jimmy Garvin kicks the guy and hits the brainbuster and pins him 1, 2, 3. But they have enhancement matches on NXT, and it works. It gets the people over. It gets the character over. There's a reason that works. And just watching those old shows, man, I wish there was more stuff like that applied today. And on a side note, I knew Brody Chase did a lot of those enhancement matches. That motherfucker is on there every week, man. He wrestled everybody.
Oh, he wasn't lying. Yeah, he wasn't lying when he said that, you know. And I remember a lot of that.
Yeah, I knew he was on there, and I'd seen some. But man, I just wish I could go back and talk to him more about some of that stuff, and just ask him, and just even stuff not to do with the actual matches, just kind of the process of, you know, getting to the building on Saturdays, and, you know, just kind of what went into it, because he's literally on like 9 out of 10 episodes of that TV. And man, I think he worked Flair on one, but Wyndham and Garvin and all the Horsemen multiple times. I mean, he was just all over the place. I was like, this is fucking incredible.
Well, if you want to find out more about the inner workings of that time period, then get a little cheap plug out of the way. You need to check out the new episode of Somehow We Manage, the only wrestling podcast dedicated to professional wrestling managers and the art of managing, over at WrestlingWithWords.com, hosted by myself and Al Getz. And this week, this coming Thursday, the new episode's going to drop with the one and only legendary manager of the Four Horsemen, a man in 3 different Pro Wrestling Hall of Fames, Mr. J.J. Dillon, is joining us for a great conversation all about that era and a whole lot more.
Man, I wish you could get some of the actual Four Horsemen on there, like a Paul Roma or a Sid Vicious.
Well, maybe one day we'll get Paul Roma on our managing podcast.
I'll have to check that interview out, because that does sound fucking amazing.
Oh, it was great. JJ was such a class act, man. God, I can't say enough about what a great human being he is. You know, most people, when you email them going back and forth about business, it's very short and curt. I'm very guilty of that many times, because, you know, and I'm here nobody, and I have like 100 people a day messaging me about wrestling shit that I'm involved in with administrative stuff and what have you. But, you know, J.J. Dillon is like an all-time legend. So I'm sure he's got 1,000 people messaging him a day. And yet every email he responded was like lengthy and well-written. You know, it wasn't just like, okay, thanks. You know, it was like, he was just such a class act. And he spent over 2 hours with us on this podcast talking about his career and just the art of managing and his various stops in different territories and the different guys he worked with. The different styles of managing, the different styles of presenting talent, where, you know, talking about presenting the Four Horsemen versus the Long Riders versus Kamala in Memphis. This is really a fucking honor and a blessing and a privilege to be able to sit down and talk with him.
Yeah, like that's, I mean, he's got to be a top 5 manager of all time. I mean, I would certainly rank him pretty high. I mean, obviously, you know, like you said, part of multiple Hall of Fames, and managed the Four Horsemen. If that's the only thing he did in the wrestling business, that would be really, really impressive. But he did a whole lot more than that, and plus did a lot backstage, in the office, if you will, a lot of times. So yeah, that's quite a mark out moment to know that you got to interview him. That's really cool.
Well, check it out, fans. WrestlingWithWords.com this Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. It drops Somehow We Manage, and get a whole library of great podcasts there as we're exploring the art of managing. And JJ, hopefully be the first of many Hall of Fame caliber guests we have on there. Also got the great Les Thatcher coming on in a few weeks. We had Pat Rose on talking about his time with Sherry Martel. And we have many other guests, maybe who weren't the managers themselves, but are historians or well-versed in a certain topic or field. For example, we have Chris Zellner from the Exile on Bad Street podcast talking about Memphis managers post Jimmy Hart through the end of the 80s, and we have a real nice litany of great oddball characters that a lot of fans probably haven't heard of that we really talked about. So check it out, the Somehow We Manage podcast. But moving along, so a lot of releases in the wrestling world this week, man. That's always kind of a bummer, but you know, this time of year, it always seems to happen. The new fiscal year has started, so they're cutting the costs and they're cutting contracts, and a lot of guys got tossed this week.
Yeah, it's a necessary evil for sure. Some of the releases were surprising. Some of them were not so surprising. I really hate to see people get released pretty much any time. I very rarely, if it's different, if it's something clearly that warrants to be released, maybe multiple violations of the wellness policy or, breaking the law, something like that. But just kind of, hey, we don't have a spot for you. That sucks to see and sucks to hear. I think the biggest one that shocked the world as much, a guy they haven't done a lot with lately, but who was really over and really talented for several years there, was Damien Sandow. I think that was kind of a shame. He's been released before and made his way back, so maybe that can still happen one day. And of course, he's probably got some ideas to do some stuff outside of the wrestling business, but that kind of seemed to be the biggest, the most upsetting release in that bunch.
You can't keep good talent down, though, and that guy definitely proved that, he was able to make chicken salad out of chicken shit on many, many occasions. And so, I can only imagine, left to his own creative devices on the indies, what he can do to, rebuild his brand and get back out there. If he wants a future in the wrestling business, even if it's not with WWE, I'm sure he's got one. So, you do feel sad anytime these guys lose their jobs, because that's it. At some level, wrestlers are basically mentally the equivalent of teenage girls. They feed off of drama. They have to have it to survive. But regardless, we're all family. And you have a love and respect for all of these guys regardless, because only a certain number of people know what it's like to do this shit. And if you're not inside that bubble and you haven't lived that lifestyle, you'll just never fucking understand it. So that alone, it's almost like people that go to war. I'm not comparing it to the actual act of going to war, but in the likeness that it's a unique experience that's only shared by a few people. So, lots of love and respect to those guys, everybody that lost their jobs. And that's it. For all you people on message boards and wrestling quote-unquote fans who are happy that these guys lost their jobs, and if you're an indie wrestler, really fuck you. You're a classless piece of shit if you're out here fucking harping about how happy you are these people lost their jobs. Because guess what, motherfucker? It could be you. But if you're out here posting about shit like that on social media, it probably won't be you, because you're never going to get a fucking job in the first fucking place, you fucking goof. But,
yeah. Yeah, I agree.
But you never want to see these guys lose their jobs. So, that sucks. There was some kind of controversial shit going on around the same time, like some shit with Adam Rose. Like, what is his status? Is he still with the company, or did he get lumped in that as a result of his legal issues?
He's been suspended indefinitely as of now, because he had first he was suspended because of a wellness policy violation, and then he came out and kind of took a stand and said, hey, I didn't do anything. I had and then actually provided a doctor's note, basically, saying that he had prescription and he wasn't abusing medication and things such as that. And then during that time, he got arrested for, I don't know, he got in a fight with his woman, and she tried to call the cops, and he stopped her. And apparently that's a big no-no in the state of Florida or whatever. I don't know, man. You know how these women are. He probably didn't do shit. Then again, hell, he may have been beating the hell out of her. Who am I to say? But he's in quite a bit of trouble right now, and I don't think it's looking good for him. Obviously, maybe they're just holding off on releasing him because they don't want to get a bad rap for releasing him in a time of his life where he's facing some trouble. But it's definitely not looking good. And also, were you able to keep up with the Ryback situation with the lengthy rant that he posted on social media? It was quite interesting.
I was. I kept up with that only because it happened right before I left. So it actually happened right before I left to go out of town, as I didn't check any wrestling shit while I was in Orlando. I just let that shit to simmer until I got back, because like I said, not having to deal with any of that just It let me achieve a peace mentally that I don't know that I've ever felt. But yeah, I got the gist of that whole deal, and that's a guy. Clearly had some talent. Big guy, had some charisma. He was damaged goods by the time he even got a push because he'd already been out there acting like a fucking jackass on TV for months. They tried to get people to fucking wash the taste out of that and push him, and he got over. And, you know, for a big guy, he could do some stuff. You know, he was pretty talented. But let me just break a hard truth to all you folks out there in the business. Where everyone, myself, Andrew, Eddie, and all the way up to John Cena and Hulk Hogan and the biggest names that you ever seen in the business, every one of us are fucking replaceable. This motherfucker will still go on. When we're gone, the train's going to keep a-rolling. And I've learned that myself from personal experience. You know, you take a break, you think, oh, man, they're not going to be able to survive without me. And they survive just fucking fine because this is not a business built on any one guy, but the collective effort of a group of individuals. And so Ryback and his demands for equal pay, it's just, it tells me he's a bit of a clueless fucking idiot in terms of finance. It's like, I understand equal pay to a degree for the wear and tear that your body goes through as far as your base contract, but you got to be fucking kidding me that you want equal pay to a fucking main eventer who's actually selling the merchandise and the things that are moving the company forward and making them money. You know, you don't make money in this business unless you make a promoter money or you're really good at conning a fucking idiot money mark out of their own money. So,
yeah, he had some really valid points, but he also had some that were complete opposite and just kind of asinine. So it kind of hurt his credibility on the valid points. Yeah, I think the pay scale could be a little more competitive as far as your basic, as far as what you get for the basic job, because you know, he's right. Opening match guys, they're doing the same amount of travel and things such as that as a lot of top guys. Now, that doesn't mean that they should be paid as much as a John Cena because he's fucking John Cena. Plus, that guy and a lot of guys like him, they do a lot of stuff that these other guys aren't doing, man. The media and the press and just a whole lot of stuff, man, that people don't even think about or take into consideration. But sure, it could be a little bit closer because I've heard if you're not one of those top guys and you're not selling a lot of merchandise or even have merchandise made, that after you do your taxes and your rental cars and your hotels, that you're not making that much money. And, you know, for that job and that type of work, you should be able to live a little bit of a comfortable life. But yeah, making top guy money when you're not a top guy is just, it's not gonna fucking happen. I don't care who blogs about it. That shit's not gonna change. Because like you said, nobody has come down the line. Nobody has come down the line that is not replaceable. And Vince McMahon and all of his people, they know that. They firmly understand that they can find 100 people to do Ryback's job that would not write blogs and business exposing stuff. And I think Ryback, I really think he was a pretty good talent because, and I honestly thought, I've even said to people that I could see him becoming a top guy. Not that he was one of my favorite guys. I didn't particularly get excited about watching him, but he was a really big guy, had a look to him. He was fairly well spoken, like in some interviews he would give. He kind of sounds like another jacked up meathead, but he could speak, and represent the company well. I kind of seen that in some things. So I thought that maybe he would be a guy that could reach that level, but maybe he got it in his head that he should have been there a lot sooner, or I don't know what happened, but he did. I don't know if he did himself any favors by posting really things that shouldn't be posted about the company for the world to see.
That's the thing about social media, man. Like, and that's the thing the wrestling business has really, like, I don't know if it's ever going to be able to evolve to match it. It's because wrestling for so many years has relied so heavily on the control of the flow of information and manipulating exactly what is seen and heard by the audience. And, you know, as a booker, you and I have experienced this as well. You know, there was a time where even just a few years prior, you could pretty well control the flow of information as far as what the audience saw when it came to your talent and the promotion and the things that were featured publicly versus privately. And now with social media, that line is blurred. You cannot control everything that every person who works for you says. And so when you can't do that, you have a harder time crafting the reality that you're trying to manufacture for the product that you're selling. And so that, and, you know, the whole Ryback situation, big thing for the WWE to see that even on the biggest level, it's a problem. And also for the indie guys out here looking at this guy as some model to follow. I mean, obviously it's not, because he ended up getting sent home. And you are all replaceable as well. We are all replaceable. So if you want to bitch about your finish, or you want to bitch about your program, or you want to go bury the promoters you're working for to other promoters, just to try to leverage them and shit, like, I mean, all that shit is just, you're replaceable. So if you don't want to be somewhere, you should just fucking go, because there's someone waiting in your wings to take your spot. I promise you.
Yeah, and you know, you can bitch to the boys, or you can bitch to your family and kind of complain about this stuff, and that comes with the territory, and that's to be expected. But yeah, to post it for the world to see and post it for fans to see, it really, even though he had some points, it is pretty unprofessional. I think nothing wrong with taking a stand, and if you believe strongly in something, fighting for it, I'm all for that. But I think there's right ways and wrong ways to do it. You know, if he wanted to say all that shit to Vince McMahon, I hope he said it. I hope he said every word of it to Vince McMahon, whether he was right or wrong. If he believed it, I hope he spoke his mind. But to post it for everybody to see, I think that's a huge no-no, and I don't see him being able to come back from that. You know, especially if it's all legit, if it's some part of some angle, well crafted, let's trick the smarts angle, you know, good for them. But if it's legit as it seems, I don't see him even sticking around, much less becoming that top guy that he wants to become. But you know, only time will tell.
Absolutely. Well, hell, guys, that hour went by very fast, but that's going to do it. We're wrapping up here for this week's edition of the live Midnight Black Mass on Beyond Ringside. It's been a lot of fun. Fast State Lane, thank you for having us again here on the program. Any closing comments here?
Real quick, want to remind everybody, live programming will pick right back up this coming Tuesday on the 17th, 9 p.m. Eastern Time with GCW Radio from Global Championship Wrestling. At 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, Back to Basics kicks right back into overdrive. And, of course, please keep your eyes open on BeyondRingside.com. For me personally, Fast Eddie Lane, LAYNE.com. And, of course, ProWrestlingRadio.net. And remember, when we switch back to recent and recorded programming, you will catch recent episodes of, and we'll have this up and loaded on the Bird, and I'll send it over to Reverend Dan so he can have it for the YouTube broadcast as soon as possible. But you can catch everything from the Midnight Black Mass to Beyond Ringside Live, Corner to Corner, the Shooters Gallery, To Be Determined Show, Back to Basics, everything we have, all the original programming right here on the Beyond Ringside family of shows. Before I let you run, you know I'm huge on shameless shills and shameless plugs. Take your pick. They're interchangeable, but yet still the same. 10 seconds. 10 seconds for those with poor assimilation skills. Where are y'all going to be appearing in the coming days? Y'all have personal appearances lined up?
No fucking fair.
Yeah, Andrew, you go ahead, because I know you have a busy schedule to tell us about.
You can't see me nowhere. If you can find me, you deserve a fucking treat. No, I'm not appearing nowhere, man, and I'm still digging that. I don't know if that'll change. I'm kind of
I don't know. I'm almost accepting the fact that I may be completely 100% done with the wrestling business. And,
Oh man.
I mean, I don't. It's not breaking my heart.
Well, if nothing else, you can see Andrew exclusively, or at least hear him here on the Midnight Black Mass.
That's right. I'm exclusive. This is my brand. I'm part of the Midnight Black Mass brand because branding is so important nowadays.
Well, hopefully you will return to regale us with your tales of conquest next week. As we get back into a regular rhythm here, I'm back from vacation and caught up, so hopefully we'll get this train rolling back on the tracks for our weekly broadcast now that I can finally see straight and am not in the weeds with so much backed up bullshit. So yeah, you can catch Andrew exclusively here. Me, I will finally be making my in-ring return to Cornelia, Georgia on May the 28th for Why We Wrestle. I've been investigating this mysterious bounty on the Lethal Dose Strychnine, the Why We Wrestle heavyweight champion. I sent Brad Cash to help him out just this past weekend, who he's had some tough luck there. Iceberg was the first guy to try to cash in the bounty. I tried to check with Iceberg to find out why the hell he did it and who was behind it, and he totally no-sold me. He's not responded to my calls, my texts, or messages. And so, I've been investigating it. I've got a little bit of info, but I'm still working on it. I'm going to be there in person on May 28th to deliver what I found to Strychnine about this bounty and let him know that the Rejects have his back. And I'm going to be unveiling the new version of the Devil's Rejects at Why We Wrestle very soon. So that's right now. The only place you'll be able to see me soon, but I've got several appearances lined up over the summer. I'll be in Knoxville, Tennessee, August 25th for Warzone Wrestling, managing Tank and Brad Cash against Tommy Dreamer and Christian Lotus. I will be in Chattanooga, Tennessee for the Scenic City Invitational August 5th and 6th, I believe. I may have these dates all cattywampus, as Stone Cold Steve Austin would say. But you can follow me on Twitter to get all the details and official information at Dragons Rejects, or on Facebook at Rev Dan the Dragon Wilson.
As he takes a breath.
So that's where I'm going to be. And that's going to wrap it up for this week's edition of the program, folks. Thanks for listening. We'll be back to you very soon. Check us out on the Potty Humor Network, youtube.com/pottihumor, facebook.com/pottihumor. Keep one foot in the gutter and one fist in the gold. Good night.